I have a great deal of affection for my father, who always seemed to me and continues to be a sort of paragon of virtue. He's got incredible integrity. And I remember being probably 10 years old and hearing him complain about the work environment that he was working in. And he's been very successful in his career, and yet in order to get to where he got, he had to endure a good deal of pain. And, you know, when you're 10, these things hit you pretty hard. And I never sort of got away from this idea that maybe there's something fundamentally wrong with the way that we build our organizations, that somebody as virtuous as I believe my father is, would be hurt so badly. You know, something needs to be done. And then as I got older, I realized that part of the problem is that I'm just sort of a contrarian in general, and that sort of whatever environment you put me in, I'll figure out like what I don't like about it very quickly. And so my experiences with the corporate world led me to a greater sense of disaffection about the way things get done in those environments. And then in becoming an entrepreneur, I decided that I wanted to do it differently. And what I found is that while you can, it's a great challenge, and that what you're fighting against is not necessarily someone who wants to tell you can't do it, but what you're fighting against is an entire culture that is so used to doing it the way we've been doing it that it doesn't even know how to think about doing it differently, right? And so that's been a great challenge. And as we got to this TEDx talk and starting to try to articulate this as clearly as possible, it became clear to me that if leaders just had a library of examples of incredible studies, incredible case studies of organizations and leaders and people who are doing things to make business something not so painful, something that places human desire and need and what makes us what we are at the center of the design decisions around how we build our structures, how we build the way we communicate, how we learn and know things as an organization, that maybe those leaders would be a little less fearful. Maybe people who have the political clout to do something about this would feel it, emboldened by these examples and make attempts, experiment. And I think this is really important for the same reasons that Chris was talking about. In particular, one of the reasons why I was so grateful for the opportunity to get Peter to come and talk with us about this, which is sort of hard to do. I mean, he's very much in demand, and I'm extraordinarily grateful to him, is because I really feel like we have a whole panoply of crises of trust in our culture. We don't trust one another, we don't trust our institutions, and that a lot of this mistrust coheres around computer. A lot of this,
can't trust our technology.
A crisis of technology.
Good transition.
Yes, a lot of these crises revolve around business, right? And not only do a lot of them revolve around business, it's my contention that business is maybe the one institution in our culture that has both the flexibility and maybe the responsibility to try to affect these changes, right? That rather than trying to impose these changes from outside, that business needs to make the effort to change from within. And that if it does so, it can address these problems. So just to reiterate some of the stuff that Chris said, I mean, a recent poll from 2013 showed that in answering a question about how we deal with other people, the answer, "you can't be too careful," gathered 66%, right? In October of 2013, there was a Gallup poll that found that 70% of the workforce in the U.S. and Canada are either not engaged or actively disengaged while they're at work. And these are the best numbers anywhere in the world, right? So I also believe that human beings, just in the aggregate, don't realize their awesomeness, right? That all of us are amazing, and that a good deal of what it is that we have to offer, that we could do, that we could realize in our lives, we don't because just somebody didn't notice at the right time. The system couldn't accommodate it, or even worse, that the system or some of us led that person to believe that they didn't have anything. They weren't able to do anything. There wasn't an amazing future in store for them. And so I believe that one of the most important components of addressing this, of making business more human, is trust. And I believe that trust is fundamentally a creative act. And that's why I'm so pleased to have Peter here. I don't think trust is something that can be algorithmatized or mechanized or explained by Google. I think that it's something that has to be done, as Peter says, belly to belly, B2B, right? I mean, we have to. Sorry, I stole your joke, man.
No, it's good. That was better. You said it the right way.
And so one of the ways that I came to learn about or think about this idea of trust as a creative act is through this idea of homophily, which I learned about through a guy named Ronald Burt. And just today, Peter, in evidence of his amazingness, put me on the phone with a woman named Dr. Karen Stevenson, who it turns out is the world's foremost expert on social capital theory. And I said, oh, Ronald Burt, who I've read a ton of, and homophily bias. And she goes, yeah, my work predates his. So yeah, it was an incredible conversation though. But let me explain what homophily is. Homophily bias is the tendency that we have to cluster, right? We get together with people that also know each other, right? And you can see three clear clusters up here. Say that 3 times fast. 3 clear clusters up here, right? And what you'll note is that James, not that James, but James up here has high homophily bias. The people that James know also know one another. And it also means they know the same stuff, right? Robert, on the other hand, has low homophily bias, right? He's connecting multiple networks. So he's not only brokering people from disparate networks, he's also brokering disparate knowledge, okay? This turns out to be important because the people that have low homophily are the people who get the best performance reviews, they make the most money, and they get all the promotions, right? Well, not all, but they're the majority. They represent the highest achievers. And it's because they're brokers, right? They're able to do brokerage because brokers create the basis for trust. I said trust is a creative act. It requires brokerage. You have to take people who have no reason to trust one another, and you have to give them reason to trust one another. And so how do you do that? Well, Peter is an exemplar of trust in business. His trust network, the example of Dr. Stevenson today. I mean, what happened in that moment is that we were talking about social capital theory. We were talking about the Be Human project and how important, I thought social capital theory was to this idea. And he said, oh, you got to talk to, and he pulls his phone out and calls the world's foremost expert on it and puts it on speaker and says, okay, you're going to talk to her now, right? And it immediate change, and it was because there was a profound and deep trust basis there. And so understanding how that works, I think it represents real legitimate paradigm shift kind of stuff. I mean, for as sort of hackneyed as that phrase might be now, I mean, this is a legitimate example. When he says instant change, it's real. When you go through it, it's sort of disorienting. So I'm really grateful that he's here, and he, to me, is, and it couldn't be a better inaugural guest for what we're trying to do with the Be Human project. So thank you all for coming, and I'd like to turn the floor over to Peter.